Welcome to all. Adolescence is a stage of transition. In this transitional stage, all of us have experienced, or you may be knowing that there will be lot of physical and cognitive changes that is taking place in their body. In this video, we will discuss physical development in adolescence, cognitive development in adolescence, implications of adolescent thinking, developmental focus, implications for counseling. After watching this video, you should be able to explain the physical and cognitive developments in adolescence to develop understanding about the implications of developmental changes of adolescence for counseling. Childhood and adolescence are considered as important predictors of a healthy adulthood. According to the World Health Organization, adolescence covers age range of 10 to 19 years, whereas 10 to 24 years age group is described as young people, which includes the youth age group of 15 to 24 years. The stage of adolescence is marked by rapid changes in cognitive, emotional, psychosocial and physical domain. Let us discuss the characterizing features of adolescence. When we think of this characteristic feature, the first feature that comes in our mind is physical changes marked by puberty. Before going to these physical changes that is happening because of puberty, first let me see what is the meaning of physical development. Physical development refers to the physical changes in size, structure and proportion of the parts of the body that occur at the time of conception. Indirectly, it affects their attitude toward self and others. Generally, we have noticed that a growth spurt is happening in the body of adolescents. As a result of the growth spurt, there may occur some kind of anxiety in the minds of the adolescents. The onset of puberty can be said to be the hallmark of the stage of adolescence. There may be individual differences in the rate of puberty attainment, but it impacts adolescent development in a significant way. The onset of puberty is marked by speedy physical growth and the development of secondary sexual characteristics. The change is much noticed in a girl's body than a boy, although in both the size, shape and hormonal structures begin changing. With physical changes, girls become more concerned than boys about their looks. They become more conscious of what they wear, the ways they dress, put on makeup, fashions, styles of shoes and accessories. Normally, as parents, we may complain that these adolescent children, they are spending lot of time in front of mirrors. Don't we understand the developmental changes, the bodily changes, how it affects the attitude of the adolescents? Several researchers have pointed out that pubertal development has a causal link with the transformation in family relations. Here comes the importance of the quality of family relationships. When there occurs a good family relationships, the timing and course of puberty will be in a positive manner, with the possibility of earlier and faster maturation observed among adolescents raised in homes characterized by less closeness and more conflicts. So, this should be kept in mind while, as parents, we are in the process of nurturing the adolescents in a proper way. There are gender differences observed in the timing of maturing and the accompanying behavioral changes. Girls mature earlier than boys, and early maturers differ from late maturers. Late maturing boys have relatively lower self esteem and stronger feelings of inadequacy, whereas early maturing boys are found more popular and having a positive self image. You see the difference, how this early maturation is directly related to the development of positive self image. Let us see what is happening in the case of early maturing girls. Early maturing girls are known to have more emotional problems, a lower self image, and higher rates of depression, anxiety, and disordered eating. The early maturing girls are more vulnerable to psychological difficulties and problem behaviors when they attend co-educational schools and have opposite sex friendships. This should be kept in mind as teachers when dealing with the adolescent boys and girls in a co-educational school setup. As teachers, we should understand what is happening in the minds of the adolescent girls. And there should be such kinds of strategies that should be adopted in classroom situations when dealing with such children. The bodily changes of adolescents play a role in the overall development of adolescents. As body mass increases during puberty, adolescent females may develop a more negative body image and in turn disordered eating and depression. Next, we will discuss about the cognitive development in adolescence. Cognitive development in adolescence is marked by development of reasoning skills and abstract thinking. What do we mean by reasoning? Reasoning is an ability to use the prior knowledge to find solutions to a problem or drawing conclusions. So, we can see that this reasoning skill is taking place among the adolescents in a wider aspects. Let us see what is happening during this cognitive development in adolescence. All of you know very well that the cognitive stages of development is well formulated by the famous psychologist Jean Piaget. And this cognitive development, we can see that it is a higher cognitive function which is associated with problem solving skills. Adolescents with these skills tend to look for various alternative solutions to a problem while exploring a range of possibilities. Adolescents are in the stage of formal operational thinking according to the theory of cognitive development by Piaget. Formal operational reasoning entails the ability to think abstractly, logically, and systematically. So, that is the definition that we given for this cognitive thinking that happens during the formal operational stage. Adolescents in the formal operational stage reason about ideas, possibilities that do not exist in reality and that may have no tangible substance. In this stage, adolescents develop a capacity to think about their emotional states, their feelings, and start making interpretations about the perceptions of social elements about themselves. Formal operational thought enables adolescents to engage in hypothetical deductive reasoning, or we may say that it is the ability to consider problems, generate and systematically test hypotheses and draw conclusions. Let us see this formal operational stage. When I think of an example, I am illustrating the example put forward by Piaget's pendulum task test. Let us see what is this pendulum task test. Piaget's pendulum task test children and adolescents' abilities to use scientific reasoning to solve a problem with multiple possible solutions. Adolescents displaying formal operational reasoning develop hypotheses and systematically test them. For example, in the pendulum problem, they change one variable while holding the others constant. So this test and this example is going on, and they utilize the different types of variable, and they find out how the adolescents solve a problem with multiple possible solutions. Next comes the concrete operational children. That the children at this stage, we are mentioning about the children at the concrete operational stage, they do not proceed systematically in a way that permits them to solve the pendulum problem. They fail to disentangle the variables and do not take into account non-tangible variables such as height and force. If we illustrate with an example, we can say that concrete operational children might test a short string with a heavy weight, then try a long string and short weight. Solving the pendulum problem requires the scientific reasoning capacities that come with formal operational reasoning. We have discussed about the cognitive development in adolescence, and in this context, we have to think about the implications of adolescent thinking. When we say the term adolescence, we may use some kind of phrases. It's a period of stress and storm, but it's not like that. It is actually a natural characteristic feature of adolescence. When we say about adolescents, the adolescents are egocentric. What does this mean? They have difficulty with perspective taking, specifically with separating their own and others' perspectives. So their ability to take perspective or to imbibe others' perspective is very difficult. And during this egocentrism, there occurs two phenomena. Number one, the imaginary audience. Number two, the personal fable. Let us see what does each phenomena represent, or what does each phenomena mean. First one, the imaginary audience means that adolescents misdirect their own preoccupation about themselves onto others and assume that they are the focus of others' attention. You have noticed that the adolescent children, they spent lot of time in front of mirrors. They think that all the eyes are upon them. This is one kind of thinking that is taking place in the minds of the adolescents. We have discussed what is happening for adolescents during the formal operational stage and the concrete operational stage. We have seen that how they are thinking, how their reasoning ability is happening. And such type of cognitive development have some implications. So let us see the implications of adolescent thinking. When we state about the characteristics of adolescence cognitive development, we may use the term egocentrism. What do we mean by egocentrism? The adolescents have difficulty with perspective taking, specifically with separating their own and others' perspectives. Adolescent egocentrism is manifested in two phenomena. Number one, the imaginary audience, and number two, the personal fable. Let us see what each phenomena mean. Imaginary audience means that adolescents misdirect their own preoccupation about themselves onto others and assume that they are the focus of others' attention. Personal fable involves a pervasive, unrealistic belief of one's uniqueness, omnipotence, and invulnerability to harm. What are the implications of these two phenomena on the thinking pattern of adolescence? That should be discussed. The imaginary audience fuels adolescents' concerns with their appearance and can make the slightest criticism made in public sting painfully, as teens are convinced that all eyes are on them. This is a particular feeling that is happening upon adolescents. The harmful aspect of the personal fable is associated with engaging in risky activities. The imaginary audience and personal fable are thought to increase in early adolescence, peak in middle adolescence, and decline in late adolescence. So, during these three stages, what strategy as a school counselor or as a teacher he or she has to adopt? There should be different strategies during these three stages of adolescence. Both the imaginary audience and personal fable are thought to increase in early adolescence, and we can see that this type of thinking it is declining during the late adolescence. Another feature, cognitive developmental feature, metacognition ability. What does the concept of metacognition stand for? The concept of metacognition, that is, knowledge of how the mind works and the ability to control the mind. As metacognition develops through middle adolescence, teenagers are better able to be planful about their cognitive system, how they take in, manipulate, and store information. They are better able to understand how they learn and remember and to choose and deploy strategies that enhance the representation, storage, and retrieval of information. During the adolescent stage, we know that they are not children, they are not adults. They are in the midst of these two stages, that is childhood and adulthood. Then who am I? This type of questions are coming in the mind of the adolescents, and sometimes they have to take some decision making process. Cognitive advances permit adolescents to engage in more sophisticated thinking than ever before and to participate meaningfully in decision making. Executive functioning responsible for decision making comes with maturation of the prefrontal cortex, which lags behind the development of the limbic system, which is responsible for emotional arousal. This difference in maturational timing means that adolescents feel emotionally charged before they have corresponding self-regulation and decision-making abilities. Their decisions about risk-taking are swayed by so-called hot processes, that is emotional arousal driven thinking. Their thought process are always based upon their emotional driven energy. It's not a rational thinking process. Adolescents often act impulsively without thought, and their decisions are influenced by affective motivators such as the desire for pleasure, relaxation, stimulation, and excitement. We have discussed what are the physical and cognitive development during the adolescent stage. Now let us see how this physical and cognitive development affects this counseling process, or what are the implications for counseling. Counseling adolescents is different from counseling children and adults. This should be the first thing that as teachers or school counselors one should know. If adolescents are to be encouraged to use counseling, we need to offer a special type of client-counselor relationship which is appropriate for them. The process of counseling adolescents needs to be different from the processes used when counseling children or adults. Skills and strategies which are specific to adolescent counseling are required. Now we will discuss about the adolescent's world and the necessity of counseling. Look at the diagram. What we can see is that you can see the adolescent at the center, which is encircled by different kinds of environment. What are the environment? The family environment, school environment, where the peer environment occupies a major place, and the counseling environment. Or we can say that what is the necessity of counseling. When we look at these adolescents' environments, different kinds of environments, you can see that there may be the interference of the gangs, the temptation to be addicted to alcohol, might be abused by somebody else, the different socio-economic status, the use of drugs, then they may belong to different religion, so that they have different kinds of rational thinking, and the influence of media. Let us have a detailed discussion about the adolescent's world. The diagram illustrates the necessity of counseling in the adolescent's world. In this figure, the adolescent's journey from child to adult is pictured as a move from the secure base of the family to the relatively secure base of the school environment, where, as I have earlier stated, the peer environment exerts a lot of influence. The environment into which the adolescence is moving, that is the school environment, is depicted as having a broken boundary because it is open to outside influences and also allows movement into and out of the environment by the adolescent so that individuation can develop. School will not meet all the needs of the adolescent. The adolescent is depicted as having both an inner and an outer boundary. The inner boundary holds the adolescent's personality, past history, and accumulated skills, while the outer boundary is broken and open to outside influences. The outer boundary represents the adolescent's newly emerging sense of self. As adolescents move out from the family circle, they develop a different relationship with their families and with individual family members. This is possible because of the newly developing sense of self. So this is an important thing. How the sense of self is developing among the adolescents when they move out of the family environment. The counseling boundary is another boundary that we can see in the diagram. When the adolescents move from the secure family environment, they are surrounded by the school environment where the peers occupy an important place. The peer environment is always giving pressure to the adolescents to engage in risk-taking behaviors such as using alcohol, drugs, and sometimes they may become victimized to sexual abusement. Here, the role of teachers or school counselors is very much important. The counseling boundary is depicted as a place of safety, security, dependability, and consistency. And we know that the counseling environment should be framed in such a way that the adolescents should feel a place to share their ideas, to share their pent-up feelings, emotions, and where they can overcome their anxiety or sometimes even the depression level. We have seen how the counseling boundary can make a safer place for the environment. Another area where counseling is important is the family style of interaction. The family is the basic foundation for the development of a good adolescent. Counseling families to provide helpful environments for adolescent growth and development. The emotional climate within a family is certain to have some influence on the ability of the adolescent to develop adaptively and with a minimum of stress. Don't we provide a family situation where parents have a time to interact with adolescents? Or are we giving them some mobiles or some laptop devices and telling them to indulge in such type of activities? Whether that is enough? Don't we think that parental supervision is necessary in such cases? Next thing where the parents should take care, that is parenting style. If the parenting style is one which inhibits change and tries to maintain the same structure that applied when the adolescent was a child, then the adolescent will struggle to make the changes which are required to move towards adulthood. For parents, whether the adolescents or an adult, they seem like they are like a child. That attitude should be changed from the parents' mindset. Adolescents tend to be higher in competence and self-esteem in families where the parents are supportive, encourage, positive, rational and interactive communication while they use firm and constant discipline. And another one, the parental expectation that my child should become a doctor or an engineer without consulting or knowing the interest and the aptitudes of the adolescents. Such type of rigid decision-making process should be avoided from the parents. Another one, do we allow adolescents to take decisions in family matters or in school or even in classroom decision making? Adult guidance, including discussion that aids adolescents in considering options, the pros and cons of each, the likelihood of each, and how to weigh information to come to a decision, aids adolescents in learning how to make good decisions. So let them have some self-regulated control, some strategy we can teach them and make them part of decision-making process. For this, what strategy we can adopt? That is the dilemma discussions. In schools, a particular approach used to promote development is dilemma discussions. This involves the presentation of open-ended dilemmas for discussion and analysis. The teacher or counselor serves as a facilitator. The purpose of discussion is for students to think through and articulate their own reasoning about decisions. The process also gives them an opportunity to hear the reasoning and ideas of others. So let us sum up what we have discussed in this video. We have discussed the physical development in adolescence, where the onset of puberty occupies an important place, and then the cognitive development in adolescence, where the implications of adolescent thinking is taking place, and lastly we have discussed about the developmental focus, the implications for counseling, that is how the decision making process and what strategies we can use. Strategies such as dilemma discussion is of help. Hope that you might have enjoyed this video and you can adopt while dealing with adolescents.